Hello, welcome to Australian Engineering Environment, Sustainability and Practice. My name is Richard Hall and I'm the subject coordinator for your subject this semester. I'm also joined by Sanaz Karamagi, who will be your tutor for this subject. There is going to come a time when you finish your studies and you're going to have to find work, and you've come to Australia looking for work. So having a subject like this gives you an idea about what's actually going to happen in the workforce in Australia, because in order for you to fit into the workforce, you need to understand what is already happening there. What I want to happen by the time that you finish your studies is that you're confident that you can go and face an interview, that you know how to write a cover letter, that you are confident that your English is at a point where you can address the selection criteria. And I don't want you to be in a situation where you are looking for work and you're feeling down. So what we're going to do in this subject is expose you to some of the unique patterns, habits and situations which occur in the Australian workforce. We're going to give you an insider's knowledge on how everything works. We've got multiple video lecturers who are going to be presenting this course. One from Australia, one who's made a career in Australia from overseas. We're going to give you some skills that are going to help you to really make that first step out of university and into that Australian workforce. What you need to do for this subject is to do all of the assignments. There are lots of little assignments. You're going to be doing assignments every week. You're going to be pushed outside your comfort zone because you're going to need to be creating video interviews and cover letters and be getting that level of skill to a point that you're going to be competitive. And it's so important that you are competitive, because there are many people that are doing the same degrees as you who are all applying for the same jobs. When you've actually been hiring people for jobs, as I have, and you see that there are hundreds of people applying for jobs, you know that even if you're the best at what you do, it's what you do in a cover letter and an interview that matters. So what you can do is practice. You need to develop those skills. You need to work with this material. You need to master this material. We're passionate about giving you an opportunity to really make it in Australia.
This video is about a number of things that we talk about Australian engineering environment. We explain about what's the purpose of this subject. We introduce the people that they're gonna be working with you during this semester. The sort of things that you gain insight into. How this subject will be taught. What's happening in the learning management system. Giving you an outline of the subject and the assessment. At the end, we explain about the further recommended reading.
What you need is knowledge, skills and understanding to work in a professional engineering environment in Australia. But you need to understand that the majority of jobs to be found in Australia is not via interviews or CVs. It's by the quality of your work. You get your next job based on your last job. And that's why it's so critical when you're starting out that you have strong competitive skills with your CV, your cover letters, and with your interviewing. Because once you've got a job, it's much easier to get that next job. This subject has been co-designed with an industry professional with an applied focus so that you get some views outside of the university as well as inside the university. There are many sectors to work in Australia. I've worked in government, in private, in web design, in engineering design, in a whole lot of sectors. You need to ask people questions. We're not going to tell you everything. You need to be proactive in Australia and go and talk to people and ask them questions. Be bold. As somebody that's new, you've got an advantage in that you can go and ask questions. Create relationships, work hard and demonstrate your value. You need to have that proactive approach of going out there and making it happen, because it's not going to come to you in Australia. Many of you are visiting Australia to undertake your education because you want to work here. But in order to work here, you have to understand how it works. Now, Australia has a very heterogeneous culture. What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of people working here who are first generation. They're from overseas, or their parents were from overseas, and it's a real mix of cultures. There's not one single Australian culture. So you need to understand that while there's a general culture in Australia, you also need to appreciate that there's influences from many places, and if you're going to be working with people from all over the world, it also helps to know how to understand their culture as well. Understanding the work culture, it's going to give you the best chance possible of finding employment, but also enjoying the work environment, because you need to understand how things work and see why it works that way. And if you don't, it's very important that you do, and you're really sensitive to paying attention to what's happening. If you're just hanging out with people from your culture and you're not really seeing how the Australian culture works, you're reducing your chances of getting a job in the Australian workforce. So really pay attention. Look for the subtle cues.
This subject coordinator is Dr. Richard Hall. He is senior lecturer at Latrobe University. I will be a head of tutor for this subject. The lectures for the subject were developed by Dr. Robert Rose. He is senior lecturer in engineering department. And also Soy Paniadasa. He is director of CPM Consulting, which is civil engineering company in the world space.
Students are going to be understanding what the different stakeholders in the Australian engineering workplaces actually do. As an engineer, you've been taught to answer questions, complicated questions. You're interested in how things work, how things fit together. But you're going to be working with lots of different stakeholders, with customers, with executives, with distributors, with suppliers, with HR people. There's a whole range of people that you actually need to be able to talk to, and you need to understand how that all fits together. So you need to understand the cultural norms and expectations. You need to understand how to manage relationships with people. You can't just focus on solving engineering problems as an engineer. You have to be able to fit in. Now, it's really important that your professional, written and oral communication is of a really high standard in Australia. That doesn't mean long, fancy sentences. It doesn't mean using big words. It means being very precise, being very specific, not overstating your things, being honest, being very precise, and getting to the point. Being part of a team is also incredibly important. If all you can do is answer questions, you won't be able to direct anybody. You won't be able to explain anything to anybody. You won't be able to tell them what to do. You need to be able to solve problems, but you also need to be able to fit those solutions into the work context. It's really critical.
The key part of this subject, there are online lectures, then you have a quiz at the end of 6-week intensive. This gonna be workshops every week and 2 hours each. The assessment include developing cover letter and videos, and you also marking each other's assignment. You can find general information about this subject and announcement. It will tell you about assignments, material of this subject, and resources of reading. But really need to check your student's email if you want to be successful for this subject. You will be given weekly email which explain about the assignment for the week. Each student will have different about their assignment. It is absolutely critical that you pay attention to your email for this subject.
In week 1, we look at an overview of Australia. A bit of background, give you a sense of Australian culture, values and expectations. This gives you a framework in which everything else fits. In week 2, we talk about stakeholders and how you go about applying for a job. Now, applying for a job is such an important thing that goes over 2 weeks. And you should be applying for jobs now. Just don't wait until you're finished. You know, you might only be able to start once you get a particular visa or you get a degree, but you should be applying now. Why wait till you finish when everybody else is applying? It only increases the amount of competition. Also, the professional communication is critical in the workplace, particularly around safety, risk, and other factors that we care so much about in the Australian workplace. There are all kinds of expectations around environment, sustainability, professionalism, presentation, how you manage your fatigue, how you balance your life. You need to pay attention to all of these factors over and above whether the fact you can solve engineering problems. Finally, there's a real expectation of quality. You need to be able to deliver reliably to your customers. They're only going to come back to you if you deliver something that meets or exceeds their level of quality. So be really careful about how you manage their expectations. How to succeed in this subject. Obviously, watching the lectures is critical because there's going to be a lecture quiz at the end of the semester, and those lectures are also tied into the workshops. You need to do your cover letters every week, your interview videos every week. Then you're going to be doing your weekly assessments every Thursday. So we get into this pattern of continuously doing mini assessments. In the Australian workplace, it's just so important to be delivering small wins on a regular basis, which is what we're building into this subject. If you're having trouble, talk to your tutor, and talk to your tutor early. Don't wait until it's too late. Once deadlines are passed, it's too late. It's also your responsibility to pay attention to our learning management system and your emails. because they contain instructions for you as individual students. They're not just always broadcast instructions. We're going to be asking you as individuals to answer specific questions just for you and keep on top of all the work. Do not get behind. It's a very short, intense course. It's high pressure, but we're hoping that through high pressure, we're going to be producing diamonds. Here's some further recommended reading for you. Our Common Bond is a publication by the Australian Government, which is used for people applying for citizenship. It's a great source of information about Australia. Emotional intelligence is a really critical influence in professional life, being able to effectively deal with people. You don't get taught so much as an engineer to deal with people, but it's absolutely crucial. FISH is about having a positive mindset. If you have a positive and go-get mindset in the workplace, you'll get much further than if you're looking inwards. Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg is also a popular read. It's a great book. It's inspiring. You need to manage your inspiration as engineers and employees and be always looking for things that are not about your business, about learning, about growing. And finally, Engineering Your Future, an Australasian guide, is a good round off of all of the things that we're talking about in this course.